Welcome to the Alex Salmond Show from Lebanon, the jewel of the Levant. This country has been at the centre of trade and commerce across the Mediterranean for thousands of years. But in the years since independence, its history has been punctuated by invasion, by proxy war and by civil conflict. Our question for today is, can Lebanon solve its immediate political crisis and reclaim the path to peace and prosperity? But first, over to Tasmina in the studio.
Thank you, Alex. And now to your tweets and emails. First up from @ByStarlight. Stella says, good to hear them putting their points without hectoring and interrupting. A pleasure to hear an adult conversation for once instead of the playground bullying of other political shows. I'm really glad you like our format, Stella. And I agree with you. I don't like the playground bullying type of interview either. Then Jennifer Hoffman says, EU is a big deception, a non-representational government that removes national sovereignty. Who would want to be part of that? Jennifer, whilst I respect your viewpoint, I don't share your presentation of the EU. I, for one, would certainly like to remain a member of it. @Brett Dunbar says, Brexit is a hugely expensive farce. It was always going to be a disaster, and the sooner we abandon it, the better. Well, I wish we could abandon Brexit. But for those who are in favour of continuing with it, I say this, at least we should ensure that we don't take the UK economy off a cliff edge. William Irvin says, just watched Salmond Show interviewing Kate Hoey. The amount of time she said United Kingdom and calling Britain a country. Britain is a state of 4 countries, not a country. Thank you, William. We've got an email from James Ferry who says, hello, Alex, love the new show, love it. Keep up the good work. By the way, how about changing the name to ex-Weehoff or a best, Modern Scotland? Thank you very much. We're going to stick with this name for now, but keep the suggestions coming in. Finally, look at this amazing picture. This is a message from William Nicol, who says, 20 kilos of lead, sorry can't afford gold. Your Oscar for putting Scotland first. They say any advertising is good advertising, but your show is quality. Thank you. P.S. You'll need to collect it. Well, thanks very much, William. I think we'll send Alex up the road to collect it from you.
For most of the last century, this city was the financial as well as the commercial centre of the entire Middle East. Because if Lebanon was the Switzerland of the East, then Beirut was the Paris of the South. From downtown Beirut to the presidential palace, where I'm here to interview President Michel Aoun, a man whose political career encompasses much of Lebanon's history as an independent nation. And on the very day of our interview, President Aoun was able to reassemble the government of Prime Minister Said Hariri, which had been plunged into a month-long crisis following his shock resignation while on a visit to Saudi Arabia. President Aoun refused point blank to accept the resignation of the Prime Minister, and through the diplomatic efforts of both the White House and the Elysee Palace, Hariri returned to Lebanon and on this day officially rescinded the resignation. The coalition government then reasserted Lebanon's neutrality in all conflicts between Arab states. However, I asked President Aoun if Lebanon could really stay secure from the regional political ambitions of its neighbours. One of the stumbling blocks to peace in Lebanon is to avoid Lebanese communities getting drawn into the rivalry of regional powers such as Saudi Arabia and Iran. Are you confident that Lebanese people can stay apart from these regional rivalries?
بالتأكيد بيقدر يكونوا بعيدين.
Certainly, they can keep away from this. But what's happened in Syria is exceptional, because Syria is a neighbouring country, and there was an incursion by the terrorists around our borders. We were obliged to act militarily. The Lebanese army and even Hezbollah were involved. Hezbollah continued to oust them away from the borders, and they took a region called Qalamoun, which is on the Lebanese border. Hezbollah helped Syria overcome the threats and dangers.
Mr. President, the sectarian difficulties across the Middle East are not confined to Sunni and Shiite divisions in the Muslim community. In many countries, Christian communities have been persecuted in Syria and also in Iraq. How confident are you of the position of Lebanese Christians?
Most certainly. Lebanon has a different experience than most Arab countries. For us, there is a proportional balance between the Christian and Muslim citizens, whereas in other countries, Christians are a minority compared to the Muslim population. Therefore, Christian populations have faced terrorist attacks, and they were harmed more than their fellow Muslim citizens.
Mr. President, your political career encompasses a great deal of the period since Lebanese independence from France. In recent days, we've seen a renewed French role in terms of helping to resolve the crisis concerning the resignation of Prime Minister Hariri. Do you welcome this new French involvement, and how do you think this will play out?
France is a country on the shore of the Mediterranean Sea. The countries that are within the basin of the Mediterranean Sea have been neighbors since ancient times. The Mediterranean was the cradle of all civilizations, which spread into the West and America. This is why we've been cooperating with each other for a long time, and we also benefit each other economically, and we are affected by each other culturally.
How concerned are you as President of Lebanon about the possibility of further Israeli incursions into your country?
I think that after the July 2006 war, Israel will no longer attack Lebanon because it will not be able to penetrate the Lebanese front.
In terms of recent developments, we've seen a much more assertive role from the new leadership in Saudi Arabia. Is this a matter which concerns you?
No. I'm not concerned by this issue, not at all. Because we already have the national unity, and this national unity prevents any danger from happening to our society.
Hezbollah have a considerable arsenal of weaponry, which they say is to defend Lebanon. But many communities in Lebanon itself are concerned with the strength of Hezbollah. How do you provide reassurance to these communities?
هذا القلق سياسي أكثر منه أمني لأن الجميع يعرفون أن حزب الله لا يستعمل.
This is a political concern rather than a security issue, because everybody knows that Hezbollah do not use their weapons in the domestic arena, except only for one time when the Lebanese government took measures against it, and a slight incident occurred which ended in 2 days. But ever since the establishment of Hezbollah in 1985 until today, there has only been one small incident, but nothing else.
In Lebanon just now, there are 1.5 million refugees from Syria, as well as perhaps 500,000 Palestinian refugees of much longer duration. What are the prospects for these refugees returning to their home countries?
We are seeking to have these refugees returned to their countries. But the international community does not cooperate with us until now, except for Russia, Turkey and Iran. We hope to be able to change the opinions of the Europeans and Americans in this respect. Certainly this issue is not easy. It is indeed a tremendous burden on our shoulders, and we consider this to be a part of the injustice that was imposed on us by the Western world.
اللي فرضوا علينا العالم الغربي.
In terms of Lebanon as a relatively small country, that is a huge number of refugees to have in your communities. What assistance do you receive from the international community to help sustain that position, and what more assistance would Lebanon like to receive?
لبنان لم يأخذ أي مساعدة دولية.
Lebanon has not received any international assistance except minor assistance for schools, because the number of students exceeds our capacity to take in Syrian students here. As for the other assistance, it is given to the refugees themselves.
Last week in Italy, you said definitively that in your opinion as President of Lebanon, the immediate crisis was over. How confident are you of that position?
I am confident because there is no disagreement among the Lebanese about settling this crisis, and I don't think that those who created this crisis will repeat it again.
And who do you believe was responsible for instigating the crisis which had to be addressed by you and other powers?
Some say that it was the Lebanese that instigated Saudi Arabia. But actually, the question is, who is it that executed this?
And how confident are you as President that the political balance which you have achieved over the last year can continue to secure peace and prosperity in your country?
This understanding will improve through time, and we are working on it.
Mr. President, thank you for these answers. I now want to move on to some more reflective questions about your career in politics. Fascinating stuff from President Michel Aoun in our exclusive interview. Much more coming up after the break.
Geyser's Financial Survival Guide. I don't buy eggs. I buy omelet futures. Hey, that's not an omelet, that's a fried egg. That's the last time I buy eggs from the future. Don't crack up. Watch Geyser Report.
Trump benefited very much from the existing plurality rule system because he was so different from the other candidates. If you took any one of those mainstream candidates and you put him in a head-to-head contest with Trump, that other candidate might well have won.
Credit is one of the basic instruments that drive an economy, but it can also lead to tragedy.
I did it. I took out a loan. The hole just started getting bigger, and the debt started getting bigger, and it was spiraling out of control.
Many lives have been broken by excessive debt.
The banks got into trouble, and all the big bankers got big payouts and everything, and the government bailed out the banks. But they didn't think of the ordinary men and women that lost money through the banks.
Hunted down by creditors, people see no future.
Bad things can happen. You become ill, you lose your job, your relationship breaks down, you become a casualty.
Is debt a lifelong trap, or is there a way out?
I was actually going to bed and hoping I wouldn't wake up. The debts had built up so much, that scared me so much.
Welcome back to Beirut. It is the Mediterranean Sea which has been the secret of Lebanon's trading prosperity through the ages. Let's get back to our exclusive interview with President Michel Aoun. Mr. President, some 27 years ago, you were forced out of this palace and into exile. A year ago, you were elected by a massive majority of the Lebanese parliament as president. How satisfying was it for you personally to return to this place with such a democratic mandate?
I felt that the right has returned to its owners. My accession to power was not my objective. The objective for me was to rebuild Lebanon and to make it an exemplary state. And this is the direction I'm working towards. And this gives me perfect satisfaction.
Now, your political career encompasses much of the history of Lebanon as an independent country. Can you tell us how that history has evolved since independence and what your hopes are for the future?
عندما كنت مراهقا أو أقل.
When I was a teenager, in fact even younger than that, a child, 8 years of age, I was in primary school in 1943. And in school we put slogans on our chests and we protested in the streets against the French. We were calling for independence. That was the beginning. In World War II, I was even younger. I used to hear the names of Hitler, Mussolini, de Gaulle, Stalin, Churchill. I memorized all of these names from the conversations between my family and my neighbors, and they always used to talk about the war. This was the first period which had a great impact on me. The second great impact on me happened in 1948, when the Palestinian refugees arrived in Lebanon. Their condition was very bad. I was 13 years back then, and when they arrived, I used to live in Har Tehrek. I started to help those who were mounting the tents for them. We used to bring blankets and tents and give them food. Afterwards, two great moments had a massive impact on me. In the Second World War, some soldiers who entered Beirut assaulted some women. And secondly, I also saw the misery on the faces of the Palestinians, the misery of being a refugee. So this stayed in my memory all my life, until I joined the military school in 1955. That year I entered the military school and I graduated in 1958 as a lieutenant. Part of the training included a year in the artillery college in Salmond in Paris, France. Then I returned and undertook all the missions that a lieutenant or a captain may undertake until 1967. It was in that year when I was at the borders when Israel invaded the Arab countries, Syria, Jordan and Egypt. Israel did not cross the borders of Lebanon, however, but as a repercussion of this war, the Palestinians crossed into our borders, and the confrontation increased between the Lebanese and the Palestinians until the two-year war of 75 and 76 broke out. Of course, since 1967 till 1976, all the military action was undertaken by us, until all the big events separated the Lebanese army and divided the Lebanese nation into two groups. The Arab region was backing the Palestinians, and the problem remained in suspense for 15 years until 1989. But during that time, Israel invaded Lebanon twice, in 1978 and in 1982. In 1978, the invasion was limited to the borders around the Belt area. But in 1982, Israel invaded Lebanon and reached the capital of Beirut. Then I was the commander of the defense regiment, which formed a belt around Beirut. And Israel were not able to penetrate this belt. But when Israel arrived in Beirut, it took the road of Ozai. By then I was separating West Beirut from East Beirut. After the withdrawal of Israel, I was in charge of the security of Beirut, and we deployed the army in all of the capital and all of the southern suburbs.
It has been, in many ways, a troubled history, but Lebanon still has the highest wealth per head in the Arab world if you exclude oil. How much more prosperous could Lebanon be if you're successful in securing that peace between the communities and staying free of the activities of regional powers?
بالوضع الحالي لبنان عايش تحت 3 أزمات.
In this current situation, Lebanon is living under 3 crises. The global crisis, which impacted us because we are part of the world economy. The second crisis is the shutting down of the land borders of Lebanon. From one side there is Syria and from the other side is Israel. We only have access to the outside world through the sea. And this is difficult for us, and it has greatly affected our economy.
وهذه كانت صعبة بالنسبة لنا وأثرت علينا كثير اقتصاديا.
The third crisis is the massive Syrian displacement, which is costing us and continues to cost us. Our resources have decreased significantly. In 2010, we had a growth rate of 8%. Now we are around 1%. But we hope to climb over the 1% next year.
The balance of communities in Lebanon is sustained by a confessional system of government, where various seats in the parliament and various offices of state are reserved for particular religious communities. How stable can such a system be, and are you satisfied that provides the balance for Lebanon to go forward as a peaceful society?
This confessional system is a political system. Lebanon has 3 parties bound by a coalition, and this coalition is ruling Lebanon. Political coalitions occur in all countries of the world.
The American Secretary of State Rex Tillerson said recently that we must beware of Lebanon being used for proxy wars. How much of a danger is that? And are you satisfied that your actions and those of other powers have removed that imminent danger?
بالتأكيد يعني لا يكفي أن يقال بالخارج أنه يجب
Most certainly, it's not enough for those outside of Lebanon to say that Lebanese sovereignty and stability must be preserved. The Lebanese people must be the first to preserve their own national unity and stability. Maybe what is said outside helps, but Lebanon, after all the hardships they have been through, are willing to go forward in this direction. I would like to draw attention to the fact that the events in Syria started in 2011, and ever since then, despite all the political divisions between the Lebanese, there have been no internal clashes. And when we made this agreement, there were no obstacles because there were no clashes and no bloodshed between us.
ما كان في حواجز لا إلى أنه لم يكن هناك قتال ولم يكن هناك دم.
And what would your message be as President of Lebanon to the major regional powers, firstly to Saudi Arabia and then to Iran?
بعتقد إنه السلام هو بجيب الازدهار وبجيب الأمان.
I think that peace provides prosperity and security for all. And war is a loss for everyone, because all the resources of any country are wasted during any war. And instead, these resources could be used to contribute to the country's prosperity and development.
Finally, Mr. President, this country of Lebanon is one of the cradles of civilization. It has a magnificent history as a trading and commercial centre. How confident are you, as President, that you can secure the peace?
I think we are capable of restoring Lebanon to its previous status as the Switzerland of the East. I believe it will go back to that status.
But your weather and climate will still be better than Switzerland?
Our weather and climate is warmer, and warmth helps relieve people. I say that Lebanon is a heart for the West and a mind for the East, because our culture has a duality. We have a Western dimension as well as an Eastern dimension in our culture, and they complete each other. Europe has a dry heart. It takes from our heart. Europe is more courtesan, more reasonable, more logical, and we take from them.
Mr. President, we wish you success, peace and prosperity for the future. Thank you so much for appearing on the Alex Salmond Show. Can I present you with the quaich?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Well, Lebanon may have a warm climate, but President Michel Aoun is a very cool customer. Given the experiences of his career, it takes a great deal to ruffle his feathers. He has set himself high ambitions, but he just might be successful in restoring this beautiful country to its previous position as the Switzerland of the East. Now from the Lebanon, back to Tasmina in the studio.
What a fascinating interview with Lebanon's President Michel Aoun. The President exudes confidence that he can keep Lebanese society secure from regional conflicts and on the straight and narrow road to peace and prosperity. However, this last weekend's unrest on the streets of Beirut following the Trump decision to recognise Jerusalem as the capital of Israel shows just how fragile Lebanese community relations can be. One wonders whether a US State Department, which had worked behind the scenes to secure the stability of the Hariri government, advised the President on the possible consequences to Lebanon of this latest White House initiative, which has also been met with near total universal international condemnation. However, this has still been a good week for those who believe in a prosperous future for Lebanon. The government is back in office and the peace secure for the time being. As President Aoun put it himself, the political crisis is over. Let us all hope that it stays that way. Next week we'll be in Edinburgh for a special Christmas episode of the Alex Salmond Show. So from Alex and all of the team here, we'll see you then.